Hey everybody, welcome into Bite Time. Harry McCullough here. A lot of people may or may not know we got another election that's on the way, and we do have 3 amendments that are on the ballots. And here to talk about it is State Representative Beryl Amedee, District 51. Beryl, thanks so much for being with us, and we're going to run through all 3. We've got a couple segments we can talk about it. Like I say, a lot of people didn't even know there was an election.
Yes.
But so why are we having another election right after the other election?
Well, during the legislative session this year, when certain constitutional amendments were being passed, it seemed that there were a lot of them that were successful, that were passing the legislature. And so out of the fear that we were loading up the ballot too much, we decided that any constitutional amendment that passed the legislature past a certain date would be postponed to the December ballot instead of November.
Yeah, so these are seem like different, and so let's start off with number 1. And I know a lot of times it seems like I would always worry, like, oh, they're going to sneak in some tax. These are no taxes.
No.
These are all just amendments that are going through. The number 1 is prohibiting voting for people who aren't U.S. citizens. And the first time when I see that, I go, well, is it legal? Can they do it now?
Right. This is the one of the 3 that I've been getting the most phone calls and emails about at my office. And it's because somebody is spreading a rumor that if constitutional amendment number 1 passes, illegal aliens will be able to vote. And it's like, no, far from it. So let me start from the beginning. Right now, under Louisiana law, only citizens can vote. If this amendment passes, under Louisiana law, only citizens can vote. Which begs the question,
why?
So what changes
What are we doing,
and why
right?
are we doing this? And so the reason we're doing this is to make the language that's in our Constitution even more specific so that there's no wiggle room. So currently, our Constitution in Section 1, Article 1, Section 10 says, every citizen of the state upon reaching 18 years of age shall have the right to register and vote, and then it goes into a few exceptions. So it says every citizen of the state would have the right to vote. If this amendment passes, it's going to say every person who is both a citizen of the state and of the United States upon reaching 18 years of age shall have the right to vote. And the exceptions continue. So we're adding every person who is both a citizen of the state and of the United States. And this is just for clarity. If this does not pass, the same people who can vote today are going to be able to vote next year. Okay. The reason we want to put this in the Constitution would be, number 1, to prohibit what we might call sanctuary cities from having a different rule about who could and could not vote. And number 2, so that should the legislature in the future decide that maybe non-citizens should be able to vote, the legislature by itself cannot change the law. It would require a vote of the people statewide. It would require a change in a constitutional amendment if this passes before, in the future, the law could be changed to allow non-citizens to vote.
Because there are some cities that are doing it. I think Washington, D.C., I thought I read that the other day, that if you were a Russian and you just working in Washington, D.C., you can vote in our presidential election. Obviously, that's all things that are going on right now. But this would prohibit that kind of.
Yes, this would make it even more clear in the Constitution, not just in state statute, that the citizens of Louisiana believe that only U.S. and Louisiana citizens should be able to vote in elections in Louisiana. And if it does not pass, as I said, it's still the same. The current law that says that you have to be a citizen of Louisiana to vote, if it does pass, it just specifies that you have to be both a citizen of Louisiana and of the United States. And so there's that legal question of, is it possible to be a citizen of Louisiana and not be a citizen of the United States? No, it's not. Right now, in order to be a citizen of Louisiana, you must first be a citizen of the United States.
Right.
So if it sounds like we're playing with words, you're paying attention.
Right.
But the reason for that is to make it even more clear, so that we don't have to wait and let a court of law decide these things in the future.
I guess, and just to, when we go over this, and we're talking about, foreign immigrants that may get into the country illegally, I feel a couple different ways, obviously. Thank God some of those guys were here after the storm, because we still all have blue tarps on our roofs if a lot of laborers don't come in here. Are those people available? Obviously, you can go to get health care, you can go to schools now, you can do all that. But this is a totally different thing as when you're talking about voting.
That's correct. Right now, a lot of the programs that people who live here who are not citizens yet
Or trying to become
are
citizens,
eligible
right.
for, they're eligible because federal law says so. For example, federal law says that in public schools in any state, you must educate all of the children. If
Right.
they live here, then they need to be able to have access to education,
Right.
whether they're bona fide citizens or not. And the same with certain aspects of health care and certain other government programs. Those rules are written at the federal level, and they're written broadly for all people who are here. We don't want anybody to suffer.
Right, sure. And look, there's a lot of confusion for those folks, no matter how they got here. They're working, but they don't know if they should pay taxes, and there's an underground economy sometimes that goes with that too. Or they don't want to reach out to resources because they're afraid if they give their name to a school system, something else might happen.
This is true, but for the most part, workers here, especially those that helped after the storm, some may be here illegally, but a lot are here legally, and they're here on work visas, for example.
Right.
But we appreciate the helping hand from anyone and everyone who turned
Right.
out after the hurricanes.
Amendment number 2 is the Senate confirmation on civil service of commission members, and Amendment 3 is a Senate confirmation of state police commission members. So where is this different, and tell us a little bit about these two amendments.
Okay. These two amendments are very similar to each other. The first one deals with the Civil Service Commission, and the job of the Civil Service Commission is to oversee the administration and the rules that govern the personnel who are state employees in the civil service system. And they also hear appeals of decisions on disciplinary actions and what have you. So that's what the board does. Currently, they're made up of 7 members, and 6 of the 7 are appointed by the governor. Now, the 7th one is voted on by classified employees across the state. And all of the members of the commission serve for 6-year terms, so it's varied. So there may not be one governor who gets to appoint all 6, for
Right.
example, but a governor gets to appoint whatever members have terms that are expiring. And what Amendment number 2 would do is it would require that the Senate confirm the governor's appointees. And then, now that you understand that one,
Sure.
number 3 is the same, except it applies to the State Police Commission. And so the State Police Commission deals with the rules governing personnel activities and hears appeals on disciplinary issues among the civil service police officers. And that board or commission is also made up of 7 members, 6 of whom are appointed by the governor, and the 7th is voted upon by classified police officers. And they also serve 6-year terms.
And it would both be the Louisiana Senate.
That's correct.
Which begs, I guess, the question, is this now the legislature pulling back a little power from the governor? I mean, we see how Senate confirmations go in
the federal level?
Washington, right? And if you don't have, if it's not your side, then you don't get a lot of judges or whatever, Supreme Court or whatever judges through. Is this a Senate doing that to our governor?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say that there will not be politics involved, because it's the nature
It's politics,
of
right?
politics. But this isn't governor specific, because this, honestly, if these 2 amendments pass, they won't even be in effect. Well, I guess they'll be in effect later in
Right.
the year. So
Wouldn't
it's
really affect it,
possible that
right.
the current governor might have an appointee or a
Right.
few before he leaves office. So generally speaking, though, these amendments would affect governors in the future, not specific to
Right.
the current governor. And also, we don't know in the future what the breakdown will be, whether the governor and the Senate, majority of the Senate, will be of the same party or of a different party. So I don't know how much partisan politics will come into
Right.
play. Certainly, I hope to never see a day where the partisan politics comes into play as much as it does at the federal level.
Sure.
Because here in Louisiana, I think we get along very well. We have our disagreements, but
Well,
but-
we have separate right now, right? You have a
Right.
Democratic governor and red legislature, so.
That's right. And many of the bills that we vote on are not party line votes. we don't actually have a literal aisle on the House or
Right.
Senate floor. Let's just say we're a lot friendlier here,
Right.
and we really want to work together and get along for the betterment of Louisiana.
Sure, probably more regional than party affiliations, but let's talk a little bit more about this and down the road. Is there been issues with just more of a safeguard that a governor wouldn't just go down a different path, that it lets the people that are elected have a little more responsibility when it comes to the Senate?
It does, and as you know, we have 3 branches of government, and so in this case, it seems that it's helping with the balance of the 3 branches, because while the governor appoints, the Senate would have oversight. So if the Senate really felt that any particular candidate was just a no-go, then the Senate could refuse to confirm that appointment. So to me, it's the branches of government working better together.
Right.
And we have had some issues in the past, and I guess one of the most recent ones during this current term of this governor had to do with some problems with the state police leadership. And so it's possible that in the future, with Senate oversight, a governor may appoint people to these commissions that the Senate would have some say-so in, so that any particular governor is not left completely on his own with only, maybe if you want to use the word friends, with his friends on the commission. But the other safeguard is that these members serve 6-year terms. And as you know, our governors serve 4-year terms, or with their 2-term limit, that would be 8 years. So we really shouldn't expect to see a time when any particular governor gets to appoint a large number of members of the commission or an entire commission.
Right, and this is just confirmation, right? They're not actually electing or bringing up things themselves and telling the governor to do anything. It's just confirmation, and in good politics, normally that's just a rubber stamp for the most part. Like I say, we've seen a little different in Washington lately, but for the longest time, nobody kind of objected to the president's Supreme Court until President Bork and Reagan. President Reagan and
Well,
Bork.
we've seen some interesting things in the last decade or two, but this is one more way that we increase transparency and oversight by having a committee hearing where they have to approve an appointee. There's an opportunity for questioning in a public setting.
Right.
It's less being decided behind closed doors, as they say, and more being decided in the public eye.
You know, when you talk about, I guess, Terrebonne, St. Mary, Assumption, Lafourche, is that the 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you go in that Bayou Lewis and in that area right there, those lines of all the parishes kind of jump around. So sometimes we think, you know, there's a lot of different elections and a lot of different things are on the ballot in those 4 parishes. You wanted to cross over a little bit.
Sure. Well, as we've been saying, the next election day is this coming Saturday. It's December 10th. And like all Saturday elections, the polls will be open from 7 till 8 on that day. And we have 3 constitutional amendments on the ballot for everybody. But some people are going to have a few extra things on their ballots, like runoffs in the local races or maybe tax propositions. So I have a list of what's going to be on the ballot in Terrebonne, Lafourche, Assumption, and St. Mary. So let's see. In Terrebonne, everybody has constitutional amendments, but School Board District 1 is going to determine a runoff between Allison Gill and Mike Lagarde. And in St. Mary Parish, there will be the amendments, and there will be a parish-wide home rule charter amendment, and it has to do with the rules or the policy that they are proposing concerning the election of the chairman of their council, their parish council, every year. Within St. Mary, they also have a few local races to decide. There is the Baldwin Police Chief, and that's a runoff between Fuselier and Gibson. There is an alderman in Baldwin, and that will be a runoff between Carolyn Bozier and Marion Newton. And then, I'm sorry, I was trying to read my own handwriting. And then going over to Assumption Parish, of course, they'll have the 3 amendments. They're also going to be handling a runoff for Public Service Commissioner, and that race is between Lambert Bozier and Devontae Lewis. And there are 2 millage renewals parish-wide on the ballot for the Sheriff's Office, and there are 2 school board races. One is in Ward 5, and that'll be between Joshua Abear and Jesse Robertson, and one is in Ward 6 between Nick Nicholas and Jack Washington. And then we go over to Lafourche, where they have the amendments, and there's also a Ward 10 Veterans Memorial District millage renewal, and that has to do with the money they use concerning memorials and buildings. So that's the rundown for all 4 of my parishes.
So obviously, when you don't have anything at the head of a ticket like a governor's race or a presidential or even, you know, any runoffs for sheriffs or the main thing would be, I guess, if you're a supporter of any of these, is to get your turnout, right?
Yes, yes. If you either love or hate any of these
Right,
items, the turnout is going to make all the difference, because many people that I speak to right now say, I didn't even know we had another election, and we do. And I think it's because since there is not a heated race between candidates at a high level, we're not seeing TV commercials, we're not hearing radio ads. There's just not a lot of activity. And so people are now getting busy with the holiday rush.
Right.
And I think there could be a lot of people who simply forget that there is a reason to go and vote on Saturday.
Sure. I do see a little bit for that Public Service Commission at Boissier against the other guy, and I should know his name, but I know that you said that was Assumption Parish. So it's funny, we were just talking about the holidays. It's a Christmas season, and you have some legislation we want to talk about coming up too. But you think the polls may be different for people that are going to the polls because of what we just went through with COVID and all that?
I believe that there are a lot more people who are focused on protecting their health. And so I know there are people that showed up at the polls wearing masks, for example. There are a lot of people who might otherwise prefer voting in person who have requested mail-in ballots and have voted that way. So we do see some changes, and I'm hoping that no matter what a person chooses to do, what their method of voting is, that people really don't forget to take advantage of their right to vote.
Yeah.
I don't think a pandemic should scare us away
Sure.
from that.
No, and I mean, it's time to get back, and we're talking about that too. Legislation, you got some legislation that you're going to look forward to. So you got to wait to see what bills pass before you can specifically do it, right?
Well, we already know what bills passed from last year, and I don't think that the amendments that are on this ballot Saturday are anything that we're waiting specifically on, at least not related to the bills that I'm considering.
Right.
So this is bill drafting season from now till March, really. And so this is a time where legislators are considering what bills they're going to bring. And so besides budget items, because this will be a fiscal-only session, we are limited to 5 bills each on other subject matter. And so I have a short list of some of the topics that I've been studying and researching right now. One that I'm planning to carry is a parental rights constitutional amendment, and this one would say that parental rights are fundamental, and so that you could not be relieved of your parental rights unless or until you are declared an unfit parent. Otherwise, it should be up to you as a parent to make the decisions concerning the upbringing, education, and health care of your own children. Another would be a bill on medical autonomy that would protect an individual's right to make their own health care decisions, so that a government should not be able to mandate what you must or must not do concerning your own health care. And another 2 would have to do with some of the things we experienced during the darkest days of the pandemic shutdown, and that would be to protect nursing home residents and hospitalized patients concerning visitors, especially when someone is in their final days. So it would have to do with end-of-life care, because we should never see a time when someone's spouse or grandparent has to die alone, only surrounded by the faces of strangers.
Right.
And so if I can bring legislation to fix that, that's my plan.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think hopefully we learned a lot of lessons from that, and hopefully we can make sure that doesn't happen again. Beryl, thank you so much. A very interesting couple of segments, so I appreciate you being here.
Yep. Happy holidays.
Same to you. We'll take a break. We'll be right back with more Bite Time after this.